We are back with Doc Swiner. It is Self-Care Friday. How you doing, Doc Swiner?
Hello, how are you?
I'm listen, just over here trying to practice your forms of self-care that you have given us. Um, Before we jump into this week's conversation, can you recap for us what is your definition of self-care?
Self-care is anything that you can think of that will make you feel better, either for the moment, healthy things that will make you feel better for the moment and for the long term. So, not just about manis, petties, and getting your hair done, although those things are important, but also long term things that'll make you less stressed, feel less mental health issues, less depressed, less anxious, and hopefully live happier and longer.
Happier and longer. Yes, Lord, I'm all about that. So, what should we focus on this week? We've talked about a lot of different forms of self-care. What you got for us?
Yeah, I think, what is unfortunately trending is the horrible news of yet another mass shooting at the hands of a white person toward a group of Black people, and
Mm.
talking about how we all deal with trauma and how we should help ourselves to feel better, help our community to feel better during times of crisis.
And sadly, this is something, first of all, I think this is important for us to talk about because sadly, in this country, it's so common that
Unfortunately.
we need a coping mechanism. We need to know like how to process this and how to deal with this. And, now it's just like, oh my gosh, you're not safe at the grocery store.
Mm,
Like, how do we deal with this?
yeah.
How do we cope?
Well, we were, right before we started recording, we talked about how seeing a lot of this stuff on the news and hearing about it on the radio, it at times makes you feel numb, right? After the
Hmm.
fifth or
Hmm.
sixth time, it's hard to allow yourself to feel and be able to move on with life because the world expects us meaning Black people, people of color, to just keep moving, move on, keep going.
Hmm.
We tell
Hmm.
ourselves move on and keep going, and it's hard to do that. So there has to kind of be some balance between feeling the feelings, being angry, being
Hmm.
sad, being fearful, but then continuing on with your life. So we'll talk about a couple of ways that some of the experts say that we all should do that and help ourselves to do that.
Okay, what's the first way? Because I feel like everything you said is super accurate. It's like, you get numb because it's happened so much, but you're also fearful. Like, okay, well, what's going to happen when I go into this Target, this Walmart, this grocery store, this mall?
That's right.
What happens when I send my kids to school?
Yeah.
It's kind of scary. Like, how do we process it?
Yeah, it is. So I think, and a lot of literature that I've seen says essentially to feel the feels, allow yourself to feel those feelings.
Hmm.
Don't ignore it. Don't try to escape them. Those are real life emotions. So feel
Hmm.
angry, feel sad, feel afraid, but then you got to do something with that. You have to take action after that. So if it's sadness or anger that you're feeling, you may want to, take a mental health day off of work, or if you want to keep
Hmm.
your kids home from school and just be together as a family for an extra day, I think that's absolutely reasonable. And you can ask for
Hmm.
a work note or use that sick day. I absolutely think that's fine if you need the time just to be still and quiet. If you need to sit and talk with your family about feelings and how you're all feeling, and then maybe make an action plan. So what happens, what is our plan if something unfortunate happens? Where will we meet? What's our safe
Hmm.
word? Who will we
Hmm.
call? Make a plan so that you feel like you're not stuck and that you don't have, what is the next step if something horrible happens, so that you feel a little bit more prepared. And then if you need to get involved with community involvement or community action, then do so. There are plenty of websites and plenty of organizations that are fighting for civil rights and social action and change, and volunteering or donating money to these causes will help them to continue the fight against this horrible. It's another epidemic and pandemic that we're living through is these acts of violence because of racism. So getting involved in that way hopefully can help you use those feelings constructively.
All of that sounds good. I think it helps. I like the idea of having a plan, talking to your family about where are we going to go, what are we going to do, who are we going to call, what's our safe word,
Right.
because while you can't control the things that happen around you, at least you know if something happens, there are action items in place,
Right.
and it's not
This
just
is a
I'm
waiting
frozen
spot.
in fear.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I think that's really good. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Um, and then I would think also is like, take a day and, hang out with your family, be with yourself, call your therapist, talk to your
Absolutely.
therapist about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. The other thing that I usually do is I put my phone down for a while. I mean, you work in journalism, so it's hard for you to avoid the constant feeding of the news that we get. But I unfollow certain pages, or I just don't pick up my social media for a day or two. I don't turn on the live news. Only pick up on those things that I need to know about, to just give myself a break, give my soul and my spirit a break from feeling that negativity. I say a prayer for what's happening, and I pray that those that are affected are well cared for and have comfort. But you can't constantly feed yourself that negativity. Sometimes you have to take a little bit of a break. So taking a social media or a news break, absolutely reasonable.
It kind of felt like that even during COVID. Like you
Yeah,
could only take in so many death numbers, hospitalization numbers, stats, just all of that. At some point, it was just like, oh, I need a break from this. I don't want to watch the governor give an update every single day at noon. I just,
yeah, and it's especially hard if it's part of your job, right? So as a healthcare worker, I had to pay attention to that stuff. But at some point, on the weekends or in times when I wasn't working, I was like, I can't tune into another Facebook Live. Although I need to know this stuff, I'll catch up tomorrow. I'll
right,
catch up tomorrow.
right.
Yeah. I
I
think
think
another
that's good.
important yeah, I think another important thing, just as you are giving yourself a break, again, this is fine line between avoidance and
Mhm.
being all in. You have to be careful with toxic positivity. Have you heard of that term?
No, what is that?
Toxic positivity is kind of it's the extreme on the other side. So one extreme is feeling the negative, right? But then the other
Mhm,
extreme
mhm.
is pretending that everything is great. And it's not. So it's the
Okay.
right? So it's the constant post of everything is great, you're great, the world is great, don't worry about it, God got us, right? Sometimes that doesn't feel realistic. So you want to be careful. You also don't want to be someone that kind of feeds toxic positivity all the time, because then if someone's really hurting or someone really feels depressed or really anxious or that things are really bad, that's it's a false it's false reality. We there will always be bad and sad things that happen, and we have to deal with them. There's one thing. It's one thing to look for the joy and focus on joy, but it's another thing to pretend like it's not happening. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
no. Well, and I think that if you are doing that when someone's grieving, going through a depressed state, and you're saying it's fine, blah 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 blah, don't worry about it. It's like you're ignoring their feelings,
You're
right?
dismissing your feelings. That's right.
They're You're
That's
dismissing their feelings. Like I'm allowed to feel my feelings. I'm allowed to
absolutely
feel the way I feel right now, and you can't just brush it off.
correct. So I think there's this fine line between showing what's real, and we do this all the time on social media. I think a lot of us post wonderful, happy, positive things, but then it dismisses the hard times that some people are going through. So you want to find that fine line, and it's a challenge.
Thank you again, Doc Swiner, for these tips on self care. How do our Foxy listeners find you and get in touch with you?
Yes, I'm Doc Swiner on almost all social media except for IG, where I'm at Real Doc Swiner. Most of my contact info is on social media. So if you need to DM or email me, you can contact me through that. And then please stay in touch with your primary care providers, your therapists, your mental health providers if you need additional help.
All right, it's another Self Care Friday with Doc Swiner. Thank you.